As long as I'm President of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Good morning. I'm pleased to inform you the American people should be extremely grateful and happy. No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime. We suffered no casualties. All of our soldiers are safe, and only minimal damage was sustained at our military bases. Our great American forces are prepared for anything. Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world. No American or Iraqi lives were lost because of the precautions taken, the dispersal of forces, and an early warning system that worked very well. I salute the incredible skill and courage of America's men and women in uniform. For far too long, all the way back to 1979 to be exact, nations have tolerated Iran's destructive and destabilizing behavior in the Middle East and beyond. Those days are over. Iran has been the leading sponsor of terrorism, and their pursuit of nuclear weapons threatens the civilized world. We will never let that happen. Last week, we took decisive action to stop a ruthless terrorist from threatening American lives. At my direction, the United States military eliminated the world's top terrorist, Qasem Soleimani. As the head of the Quds Force, Soleimani was personally responsible for some of the absolutely worst atrocities. He trained terrorist armies, including Hezbollah, launching terrorist strikes against civilian targets. He fueled bloody civil wars all across the region. He viciously wounded and murdered thousands of U.S. troops, including the planting of roadside bombs that maim and dismember their victims. Soleimani directed the recent attacks on U.S. personnel in Iraq that badly wounded 4 service members and killed 1 American, and he orchestrated the violent assault on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. In recent days, he was planning new attacks on American targets, but we stopped him. Soleimani's hands were drenched in both American and Iranian blood. He should have been terminated long ago. By removing Soleimani, we have sent a powerful message to terrorists. If you value your own life, you will not threaten the lives of our people. As we continue to evaluate options in response to Iranian aggression, the United States will immediately impose additional punishing economic sanctions on the Iranian regime. These powerful sanctions will remain until Iran changes its behavior. In recent months alone, Iran has seized ships in international waters, fired an unprovoked strike on Saudi Arabia, and shot down 2 U.S. drones. Iran's hostilities substantially increased after the foolish Iran nuclear deal was signed in 2013, and they were given $150 billion, not to mention $1.8 billion in cash. Instead of saying thank you to the United States, they chanted death to America. In fact, they chanted death to America the day the agreement was signed. Then Iran went on a terror spree, funded by the money from the deal, and created hell in Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Afghanistan, and Iraq. The missiles fired last night at us and our allies were paid for with the funds made available by the last administration. The regime also greatly tightened the reins on their own country, even recently killing 1,500 people at the many protests that are taking place all throughout Iran. The very defective JCPOA expires shortly anyway and gives Iran a clear and quick path to nuclear breakout. Iran must abandon its nuclear ambitions and end its support for terrorism. The time has come for the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Russia, and China to recognize this reality. They must now break away from the remnants of the Iran deal, or JCPOA. And we must all work together toward making a deal with Iran that makes the world a safer and more peaceful place. We must also make a deal that allows Iran to thrive and prosper and take advantage of its enormous untapped potential. Iran can be a great country. Peace and stability cannot prevail in the Middle East as long as Iran continues to foment violence, unrest, hatred, and war. The civilized world must send a clear and unified message to the Iranian regime. Your campaign of terror, murder, mayhem will not be tolerated any longer. It will not be allowed to go forward. Today, I am going to ask NATO to become much more involved in the Middle East process. Over the last 3 years, under my leadership, our economy is stronger than ever before, and America has achieved energy independence. These historic accomplishments change our strategic priorities. These are accomplishments that nobody thought were possible. And options in the Middle East became available. We are now the #1 producer of oil and natural gas anywhere in the world. We are independent, and we do not need Middle East oil. The American military has been completely rebuilt under my administration at a cost of $2.5 trillion. U.S. armed forces are stronger than ever before. Our missiles are big, powerful, accurate, lethal, and fast. Under construction are many hypersonic missiles. The fact that we have this great military and equipment, however, does not mean we have to use it. We do not want to use it. American strength, both military and economic, is the best deterrent. 3 months ago, after destroying 100% of ISIS and its territorial caliphate, we killed the savage leader of ISIS, al-Baghdadi, who was responsible for so much death, including the mass beheadings of Christians, Muslims, and all who stood in his way. He was a monster. Al-Baghdadi was trying again to rebuild the ISIS caliphate and failed. Tens of thousands of ISIS fighters have been killed or captured during my administration. ISIS is a natural enemy of Iran. The destruction of ISIS is good for Iran, and we should work together on this and other shared priorities. Finally, to the people and leaders of Iran, we want you to have a future, and a great future, one that you deserve, one of prosperity at home and harmony with the nations of the world. The United States is ready to embrace peace with all who seek it. I want to thank you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President, have all be well. Ladies and gentlemen, that was about a 9 to 10 minutes, 6-minute statement from Donald Trump. Nothing quite emerges quite clear from it. If you ask me, he was looking extremely nervous. He was not sure of himself. He was speaking too much, a little too soon, and I don't understand what this statement was all about in any case. Well, I have a few guests with me to take this forward right now. Gaurav Arya and Saurabh Shukla are with me this evening. And I'm also joined by Ray Locker, strategic and defense expert from Washington. And I'm joined by Dr. Wael Awad from Delhi. He's an independent international journalist and policy analyst. My first question is to Nader Hashemi, who is joining us from Denver. He's the director of the Center for Middle East Studies at the University of Denver. Okay, I've got the line with him, but I lost that. So my first question is to Ray. Ray, what was this press conference all about? I could not understand what he was trying to explain.
That's what he's doing throughout this entire process. I mean, it's basically a word salad of a buzz phrase here and there. He talked about Iran, then he talked about ISIS. And by the way, the Iranians were helping us with ISIS, and then we killed the guy who was responsible for that assistance. Look, no one here believes that General Soleimani was a great guy. He did a lot of bad things. But killing him destabilized this whole thing, and this statement today clarifies nothing. And if you looked at some of the people who were standing behind President Trump, you saw that they probably didn't know what to make of it either. The things that we have to look for is what the Iranians did last night was measured. It didn't kill anybody. I think that opens the way for future negotiations, but not along the lines of what President Trump just mentioned.
Absolutely.
Because, first of all, we don't really understand what he talked about.
I don't understand either. The appropriate hashtag for this is Iran scares Trump. And ladies and gentlemen,
Right.
Dr. Wael Awad, he kept saying that I have these beautiful missiles. I have these lethal and fast missiles. And he was like a child saying, I have all this stuff. And then he said, I'm even developing my hypersonic missiles. If he has all of this, then why is he begging UK, Germany, France, Russia, China to help him? If he has all of this, Dr. Wael Awad, why is he seeking the assistance of NATO? I mean, if he can respond, why is he not responding? This was the most distraught American president I've ever seen. Dr. Awad, what do you think?
Well, I think Arnab, if you noticed, as I did, I echo what you have said, is exactly like he started with Iran in nuclear, Iran that should not go nuclear, and that is the message he's trying to give to his allies. And he spoke of a more active role of NATO because he knows that he cannot go to the war alone. That's why he speaks of American might, but he's unable to apply it on the ground because what they have done, it is a violation of the UN Charter and a violation of the treaty with the Iraqi people, where he assassinated two leaders, one Iraqi and one Iranian. So therefore, he just tried to calm down the American, and he's trying to message to the American directly, in fact, by saying that they have the power to protect their own people and no casualties. But what we are getting the feedback from the ground that there are several casualties, and some of the helicopters, American helicopters, have been evacuating them. So I don't know where to go unless and until we verify all these things. We need to know why he took him so long to speak, because he was waiting to know the exact figure of the collateral damage that have been carried out by those attacked by the Iranians.
You know, when a president makes a statement, Saurabh, and I'd like to get in Nader Hashemi. I think I have him on the line with me. Nader, joining us from Denver. Nader, what is the sum total of the statement? There was so much hype built about Donald Trump's statement. I think you heard it just before you came on live. Besides saying that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, which is something that he also said in capital letters on the 6th of January on his Twitter feed, what really did he add to that? And when I saw an interview earlier where the foreign minister of Iran says, are Americans feeling more secure now? I think after today's press conference, where you have an American president begging NATO for help, Americans will feel even more insecure.
Look, the statement this morning in the United States by Donald Trump adds nothing new to the conversation that we haven't already heard from this president since he assumed the presidency. This is more sort of bluster, more sort of tough talk, more incoherent talk. So, for example, he says that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Well, that was the whole point of the Iran nuclear agreement, which Donald Trump tore to shreds in May of 2018, which then set the course to the crisis that we're facing at this moment. So it doesn't make any sense what Donald Trump has to say. I'm 100% sure that Donald Trump never read the Iran nuclear agreement, because if he did, he would see that that nuclear agreement prevents Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. This is not someone who's known for his sophistication when it comes to international relations or the history of the Middle East. So unfortunately, the world is stuck with this president who is bringing us to the edge of war, and we all just have to hope that cooler heads will prevail. Perhaps there's a chance and opportunity at this moment for robust diplomacy, for prominent countries in the world that have direct communications between both countries to try and dial this conflict back, and then wait for the next US presidential election. Hope we get a president
I think
that at least believes in basic issues like the facts.
This
and,
this will weaken him. Yes, of course. But before that, Saurabh, as Nader said, I think this is going to weaken him, because he is coming on television before a very anxious American
down,
people.
Arnab,
Yes, okay, go on, Saurabh.
If this was, it was a climb down. If you saw his earlier statement and this was a clear climb down. And I can tell you the backstory here. He was clearly told by his closest allies, including India, and I have it from authoritative sources, that this is not the right time to go for a war. You have to look for other solutions, because obviously the world cannot afford a war at this stage. None of his allies were backing him. That's the reason why, if you ask me, it's a tactical climb down by Donald Trump. Because if you see his body language, the way he's speaking about, he will go the sanctions route, he will go the diplomatic route, but he realizes that his allies, the closest ones, know that there is a huge economic cost of the war, which the world cannot afford. And it will affect the stability of the entire world. That's the reason why he's talking in this manner. That's the reason why this tactical climb down is coming from the US President Donald Trump. Don't forget, Prime Minister Modi had a conversation with him. Our Foreign Minister Jaishankar had a conversation with the US Secretary of State, where I believe these messages were clearly communicated, because India has a high strategic stake. 40 billion of remittances come from the Middle East. Our 10 million of Indian diaspora is there. Clearly, a lot of other allies also impressed upon him, and that's the reason why you see some kind of a climb down coming out.
He also looked extremely anxious, Sushant. He was breathing very, very heavily. He was not looking well. I don't want to, go more into reading his body language. There was something terribly wrong about him. But beyond that, he actually was forced today to climb down. Now he is going and directly, personally, no diplomacy, President of the United States of America on his knees, appealing to China. President of the United States of America on his knees, appealing to Putin. To European allies and Russia to withdraw from the nuclear deal. It indicates his essential worry. He's taken his threats too far and does not know how to implement them. What do you think?
No, I disagree with you. I disagree with you completely, because number one, I'm not an expert on body language, but I think it was pretty well what he normally does. So I'm not going to get into that. The other thing is, I don't know, I think it was probably Saurabh before me. What is a good time for fighting a war? I can't think of any good time which is an ideal time for fighting a war. The fact of the matter is, the immediate crisis has been diffused. But I don't think the long-term crisis has been diffused. And frankly,
but he's diffusing the crisis.
You're absolutely correct.
Sushant, he is diffusing the crisis.
No, 1 second, please.
He is calling for NATO to come and help him. One minute. Just a minute. Let me count you for 1 minute. I'm coming back to you. But he is calling, pleading, appealing for NATO to become involved in the Middle East in a larger way, while repeating that sanctions will continue. Of course, sanctions will continue. He looked flustered. When I spoke about body language, what I meant was he looked flustered as he spoke. He looked rather on the back foot.
Arnab, let me just push back at you.
Yeah, push back. Sure, I will push back as well.
Okay, so Okay, so here is the thing. You know, when the guy takes action against a man like Soleimani, who has been responsible for all sorts of proxy warfares in the region in which hundreds of thousands of people have died, and put ourselves in that position when we face a proxy war, how would our reaction be? Anyways, Donald Trump, when he takes an action, we all accuse him of being a warmonger, of pushing this region on the edge of some kind of an apocalypse and all of that. When he backs down, we say, look, he's been shown to be weak. He has taken to
No. But as a 1 minute. May I tell you? How is the world going to look at it?
No,
Sushant, allow me.
Listen.
Sushant, one line. How is the world going to look at it? Sushant, one line.
Exactly
One line.
Arnab, that is
just
exactly
a line. You see,
I'll tell you what is
the
going to
world
happen,
will say. No. You look at the one sentence.
No, just
you look
let
at
me-
one sentence, Sushant. Just one sentence. He, as a president of the United States of America, and I think Naved, if I can get you also, and I come back to you, Sushant, on this, he comes out and says that, look here,
Let me just finish this line of thinking,
allow me one sentence. He says, all these weapons are weapons given by Obama. And Obama's weapons are now being used against Trump's army. I mean, now the whole world and NATO can turn around and say, that's your internal problem. Sort it out between the both of you. You are admitting that you've been creating the problem and you're asking for our help to come and solve it. That is tactically a mistake. Naved, what do you think? What do you think, Naved? Nadir, what do you think, Nadir?
Look, there's no coherency, there's no consistency, there's no foresight to anything Donald Trump says with regard to domestic politics or foreign politics. For example, only a few weeks ago, when Donald Trump announced a major troop pullout from northeastern Syria, he was saying the exact opposite to what he was saying this morning. In other words, we don't want to stay in this region. These are forever wars. Let other countries take the burden of responsibility for security. Now he's, rushing more troops to the region, sounding tough, engaging in a military conflict with Iran. Donald Trump is, I think, fundamentally motivated by his own personal ego, his image, and then how to get reelected again in the United States. Nothing beyond that. He doesn't care about Middle East security or international security, and unfortunately, we're stuck with this president for the next 11 months.
And he also...
That's exactly
yeah,
right.
go on.
I mean, look
Yes, Ray.
at the situation where he is yo-yoing from one place to another.
Loud.
He says this is based on intelligence reports, yet he continues to denigrate the intelligence agencies. You don't know what he's talking about at any given time. He looked desperate. His speech today had the sincerity of a hostage video. It's very disconcerting to most people in the United States, other than his small base. Anybody around the world looking for solace from him is going to be disappointed, because there's nothing to grab onto there. There's no policy, there's no coherence, and we have to find a way to navigate around him as best we can, and it's very, very troubling.
While Awad, before that, I want to come to you, Gaurav. You see, he also made it entirely about elections, and he made it about internal politics rather than addressing a larger geopolitical problem. He said that the foolish Iran nuclear deal was signed in 2015. That, Sushant, is, Saurabh, you'll agree with me, that's internal politics. And then he said that the nation has tolerated Iran's destructive behavior in the Middle East. Those days are over. Again, that's your internal politics, right, Saurabh? And then he said, instead of saying thank you to the US, they said death to America.
Absolutely. Arnab, if you see his statement, he's coming at Obama and the Democrats, saying that the money that they gave to Iran is being used diverted to send these missiles. So obviously, clearly, this is a election directed messaging. He knows 2020 is the election year. He wants to tell the American people that Democrats are the guys who were backing Iran. I'm taking them on. But clearly, and he's also trying to now send out a message saying that I'm going to go the diplomacy route by taking the sanctions and other things. But the reality is that he hasn't got the support of the allies here, without which
Gaurav,
he cannot go to a full-fledged war with Iran.
That's the point I made, Sushant, that, when you are
That's the reason. It's always, I'm coming.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You go on.
Arnab, just a one thing I want to answer to what Sushant said. There is never a timing for a war at this stage when the global economy is looking at a recession, when there is challenges, would be suicidal or disastrous. Any country which is advising
Sushant.
Donald Trump, which advising US, all his allies are telling him we have to find some other solution. That's what is happening. And that's the reason why you see a crestfallen Donald Trump, because he wanted to go on a different tangent.
Yeah, I mean, you would have war-gamed this. A leader who comes out and says that now China, Russia must recognize the reality and break away from the JCPOA. Let's make a deal that makes the world a safer place, etc., etc. This is a huge admission that he is alone in the changing world order. And any American citizen will ask him, didn't you think of the possibilities? Why are you down on your knees now? And if anyone is going to negotiate with you, they're going to extract something from you at the same time. You follow that, Gaurav. You see, he's asking NATO for help. It's a confession that the US alone cannot take on Iran.
Arnab, absolutely. Arnab, my entire problem with Donald Trump is not that he's not aggressive or he's a pacifist or he wants diplomacy now or he wanted to bomb Iran. That is not the point. My takeaway is that this man is not consistent. He can do whatever he wants. He's the president of the United States. This man is not consistent, number one. And in the East, there is this concept. I don't know if Donald Trump understands this concept. He did this with North Korea. He threatened nuclear war, he backed down. He's threatened Iran and he's backing down. In the East, they call it losing face. Trump has lost face. You want to hammer Iran? Go ahead and hammer Iran. Don't say something and do something else. That's all I'm saying. I'm not reading into his body language, and I'm not saying that he should have done this or that. He can do whatever suits America best. This man is not consistent. This man has lost face. That's all, Arnab.
No, now he's creating a new situation where he says Iran must, not have nuclear weapons. But then, this particular JCPOA deal, Sushant, was a deal between Iran and the West, which means all these countries have to accept that Iran has limits on its nuclear projects in return for removing certain economic sanctions. Question is, you are setting out a paradigm saying that Iran is doing this and forcing China, Russia, NATO, major NATO countries, Germany, France to accept this. Why should they accept it? You are asking them for help. In a pre-election year, you went and said, I have these beautiful weapons. I have these lethal missiles. I am going to bomb your 52 cultural sites. And he said, I'm going to hit you fast. And I'm going to hit you very fast. You have a war on social media is different. Dr. Awad, do you agree? Sri, having a battle on social media, Sri Iyer, political analyst joining us from California. Having a war on social media is different from having a real war. That's the takeaway from me, from this 7-minute press conference.
Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely, and I agree with Major Gaurav Arya in that Trump tends to be not very consistent. There is one other nuanced point that needs to be looked at. Evidently, the Hezbollah guy was their main target and Soleimani was a collateral damage. I don't know if that makes the blow a little bit less on Iran, but it looks like that was what was the main intent. But be that as it may, Trump needs to really weigh his words carefully. He can't say that, I have all the weapons in the world, and then when it comes to starting to use them, suddenly, he's not so sure.
He didn't plan this out. So, Shant, you understand here on this, you have been warning, saying
I have a comment on this?
Yeah, go on.
I like to step
go on,
in
Dr. Awad, go on. Go on.
I think.
Go on. And one point before you come in is that Donald Trump must know that on 3rd January, following the American attack, French President Emmanuel Macron said at that point of time, our role is not to take sides, but to talk with everyone. So nobody is jumping to support Trump. And maybe he's extended his luck. The UAE is batting for de-escalation.
My understanding of this, I think he contradicted himself. First of all, he accused Soleimani to be behind so many killing in the world, and he said we have to fight terrorism, and then calling about Iran to join hand and fighting the ISIS. I think this is the contradiction in his statement, one. The second one is the more the American president speak, the more he is ridiculing the American foreign policy internationally. I think they're losing the image of being a superpower, and the only superpower which really have dominant in the
I mean, Sushant, agree here that Dr. Awad is completely right. Trump is all alone. And should he choose to escalate, Sushant, he's all alone. Nobody is openly siding with the US. That's his biggest existential problem right now.
One country
Nobody is
openly siding with the U.S. Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel is openly
Arnab,
siding with him,
problem,
and so is the Saudi Crown Prince
in
over private.
2003. At that point of time, also the Americans were leading the charge. Most of the other countries had to be pulled in, had to be dragged in, pulling and pushing them into it. Apart from Britain,
I mean, Germany is withdrawing troops. I'm sorry, Sushant, I disagree. Germany has issued a statement for calm and restraint, and is also the first country to reduce its troop numbers in Iraq.
Everybody will issue the statement. And
well, Germany, Japan has called for restraint out here.
The problem is,
if you think, Sushant,
what Gaurav Arya said,
Sushant, it's not a temperament issue. The question is the Iraqi parliament has voted for the withdrawal of American troops. France has said it won't pick sides. Even the UAE is batting for de-escalation. Japan is against escalation of this matter. Germany is withdrawing troops.
You tell me something,
Americans are against Trump.
Deal out of this.
Pardon me? My takeaway is that when you say I'm going to bomb the living daylights out of Iraq and you do not have the capacity to actually do it, then you end up looking like a fool.
Or would you rather have the Americans try and stabilize this region?
I don't give a damn. I don't need Americans to stabilize this region. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That is the Bahraini approach. We're not a red gear state. No. You say, no. I do not need Americans to stabilize the region. The responsibility of making other countries great is not Trump's.
Who is going to go out there? Are we going to go out there?
Who needs to go anywhere? Who needs to go anywhere? Dr. Wael Awad is on the debate. Wael Awad, Sushant Sareen says that without Trump, the Middle East is the Wild West. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. Who needs America? The question being asked today is, who needs America?
They are the thief of
Who needs America?
They are the thief of.
We have our own relationship with the Middle East.
And they have
Dr. Wael Awad and Sushant Sareen.
gone to the country based on a lie.
You had to bring in the Russians, you had to bring in other people to try and take care of the ISIS.
Nobody had to. Trump is looking like a damn stooge of Putin right now. He can't move an inch without Putin. That's the reality. Accept the fact. Accept that fact.
That's not the reality.
That is the fact. That is the damn reality.
But that's not the reality.
And I have a view from Iran, live from Mashhad, assistant professor of politics in Mashhad in Iran, Syed Muhammad Ali Tagavi. Syed Muhammad Ali Tagavi, Professor Tagavi, thank you for joining me. The Iranian view on the program. What did you make of Trump's 6-minute television appearance some time back?
Thank you for having me, and my regard to all the guests. Actually, with regard to your last point, the American presence in the region actually has been a disaster since a while ago. But for instance, since the Arab Spring, they have intervened in the regional affair, and while the region was going toward a kind of democracy and good governance, they interfered in favor of the Israel, and all the movements toward the democracy and good governance were undermined. For example, the coup in Egypt, I mean, they were all attempts by the United States and its main ally in the region, Israel. And now trying to make another problem with Iran. Their interference in the region, whether in Afghanistan or whether in Iraq or in any other parts of the region, for example, when they moved their embassy to the Jerusalem, went in the annexation of the Golan Heights, I mean, all of these are in interest of Israel government rather than U.S. people.
The question
So I
is,
hope that this time they take a
do you think
not to interfere.
do you think, Professor Tagawi, the audio line is not very clear, so I'll just speak softly so I can get a short. Do you think, Professor Tagawi, the people in Iran, after watching Trump today, feel he can escalate this? Can he escalate this? I saw no hint of escalation in what he said. No hint.
Definitely. I mean, from his tweets, it's clear that he is trying to save his face. He already had mentioned that when the United States assets or people are hurt, we are gonna retaliate, but now they cannot do it. I mean, they are not going to do it. I mean, it is what he say. He say that all is well. So it looks like that he's not going to retaliate, which is of course is good from our point of view. I think the revenge is from the Iranian side is done with.
No, what he's saying, what appears to me, what appears to me, and I have Glenn Carl with me from Boston. He's formerly with the CIA and is an author. Glenn, you know, when he said, can you hear me, Glenn?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Glenn. So when he said that there have been no American or Iraqi lives lost because of the precautions taken, what I read is there will be no retaliation because he says there was nothing which really had any impact on us. So he's retreating. That's the only interpretation that I can make of it. He's building a case for de-escalation on his own, while huffing and puffing his way through it.
Yeah, I've listened with great interest to the various perspectives. I think the main point perhaps hasn't been emphasized directly enough, which is Trump has, in his statement, looked for a way to sound strong, particularly to the United States audience, while avoiding going further in hostilities. It's quite clear he's seeking a way out. There was no statement whatsoever about what the United States will do. It was just a lot of noise about we are strong, we are great, I've done wonderful things, my predecessors are idiots. This is all standard Trump stuff. So he's declared victory, and it's all empty. And all of the comments about how all of our searches to find some sort of coherent policy going forward or in the present out of his statement or his actions are futile. You won't find something coherent when there is nothing but scrambled eggs, in the man's mind. And that's it. It's all about appearance for him, only about appearance. And he does not care about anything else. It's stunning. I'll make one last point. I had, sadly, in my life, many years' experience dealing with some people who have psychological issues. And one struggles to help them by acting rationally, and that is doomed to failure, because you cannot find reason when there is irrationality. And that's fundamentally Trump's perspective. It is incoherent, and that's why we're all just sort of shocked at the emptiness of it all.
Yeah, I think everyone in America is shocked because essentially he did not have a single new point to make. He was retreating.
Nothing.
He was retreating. I did not see a single new point. He just retreated right from, he started talking about killing the ISIS chief. He was claiming that as a victory. And then he built up enough room for himself, Sri, to say that there is no need to take this any further. And then added a line that the rest of the world needs to take responsibility.
Completely consistent with.
So would this not be very humiliating for the American people?
Issue. Oh, well, the United States has someone who is incoherent, incompetent, superficial, capricious, self-referential, and totally unsuited for the task at hand, mentally, substantively, morally. Of course, it's humiliating. However, the speakers have, on the whole, gotten one thing wrong, I'm afraid, which is to say that the American people, on the whole, will find this empty, and he's discredited himself and so on. For 60% of the American population, that is true. The man's atrocious. But shockingly, 40%, 35 to 40% of the American electorate thinks that this man is the answer to everybody's ills because he beats his breast and shouts really loudly. And that's a very alarming fact, but it's true.
Yeah, and one point, Sushant, that I wanted to make to you. You see, you were talking about, Sushant, you spoke about Americans having a role in stabilizing this region. You know, the Americans have not even been able to establish a pro-American government in Iraq. Iraq has been strongly with Iran for nearly 10 years. On what basis can they claim that they are a stabilizing force in the Middle East when they have not even been able to establish fulfill their basic objectives in a war that they entered in 2003? They have failed to win the support of the Iraqi people, and hence they are isolated. I'm surprised, Sushant, that you look upon the Americans as a stabilizing force. I'm really surprised given these facts.
I have to choose between two bad options. One are the Iranians. When have the Iranians last supported us? Please tell me.
How does it matter?
Whether it's on Kashmir, they always back the Pakistanis, not because they are in love with the Pakistanis, but because they are fellow Muslims. On Kashmir,
well, I think
we've had wars with Pakistan,
we should defend our own interests.
The Pakistanis.
We should defend our own interests. We should look at where we are getting our ports and our access. Saurav is a different view, Saurav.
So we should also not be backing the Iranians beyond a point.
We're not, but we need American forces out of Asia. The Republic believes American forces should all be out of Asia.
No, you can send the American forces out of everywhere, but somebody else will come into the vacuum.
India can manage to fight its own battle. We need these countries for strategic reasons. It's not about choosing between the United States or Iran. It's about choosing our national interest.
Either their proxies or trying to extend their footprint all over the region.
That's what we have done. If you see, this is what our policy has been.
Last debate.
What is the impact of this particular move is going to be that the Iranians are going to double down on their proxy warfare throughout the region and are going to extend their footprint in the region, and I don't think the region is going to see stability anytime soon. In fact, I fear that things are going to get much worse from here because the Iranian retaliation has qualitatively changed what the situation is, and the Americans backing down has also
as of now tonight.
So I think we are entering
as of now tonight, Trump is crawling.
To be stabilizing, but
Trump is crawling, and we are loving it.
The region even more.
Trump is crawling, and we are loving it. I have to close it here for my last debate. I thank you very much for joining me.